Hey, what's good, everybody? Brant here with CPC Bodybuilding, the best channel in men's classic physique. Also, classic physique news, which I have recently taken over. So you guys can find me at both of those pages. So covering all things classic physique. Today, I've got a special recap, guys. We've got obviously classic physique shows that happen virtually every single weekend here in the IFBB Pro League. But we had a special show in open bodybuilding. As many of you know, Chris Bumstead made his open bodybuilding debut. And before we get to that, guys, want to thank you guys all for watching this video, and make sure you guys like, comment, and share this with your friends. Subscribe to the channel while you're at it. And if you guys want to support me, you can do that by heading over to Evogen Nutrition and using my code CPC in order to save yourself some money. These are the supplements I use year-round in the off-season in my contest prep, used by many of the best athletes in the world as well. So go over there, use CPC at checkout to support me, save yourself some money. So before we get things rolling, make sure you guys follow me here on Instagram too, CPC Bodybuilding, also Classic Physique News. Like I said, just took over that page, covering all things classic physique. So the big news was that Chris Bumstead was going to make his open bodybuilding debut here at the Prague Pro, facing off against some of the best names in all of bodybuilding. We had Martin Fitzwater, we had Sean Clarita, Horse MD, Andrea Presti. The names go on and on. This was a killer lineup, and Chris Bumstead ended up taking second place to Martin Fitzwater, as I predicted, and after the show announced that this was his final competition. Now, he retired from classic physique specifically after this year's Olympia, winning his 6th classic physique title. Now, Chris left some ambiguity on the table and then decided he wanted to do the open bodybuilding division here at the Prague Pro. So after the show, he announced that this was definitely his last show. And also earlier in the week, we got the news that his coach, Hani Rambod, the best bodybuilding coach of all time, in my opinion, and in many others' opinion, he's coached people such as these gentlemen here who have won numerous Olympias, being Chris, Hadi Chopin, Derek Lunsford, Phil Heath, Jay Cutler, Sidney Gillen, you also got Jeremy Buendia. I mean, the names go on and on. Hani is the GOAT of coaching, and he decided to retire. So Prague was his last show as well. And things ended with a bang. We're going to go through what I think was a really interesting comparison between Chris and Martin. All eyes were on the show over the weekend. So many updates, so many people watching this live stream. And this show definitely did not disappoint. Like, this was a wild competition. Now, I want to see if we can get the stills. I think the stills are a good way to compare both of these guys. Now, I predicted heading into this show that there was going to be a pretty big size advantage for Martin, which is what ended up winning him the show. Now, open bodybuilding criteria are fundamentally different than classic physique criteria, being that it is ultimately a muscle contest. You will hear that time and time again. That's what bodybuilding is all about. Who is the biggest and the baddest, and also the most complete. Symmetry also definitely counts for something. Condition counts for something. But in open bodybuilding, you have to be the biggest guy or one of the biggest guys, and then also have all those other criteria met as well. And what I saw here was a really spectacular performance for not only Chris, but Martin. I think Martin was better at finals than he was at prejudging, but Chris definitely stole a little bit of the show, even though he took second place. A lot of people had him winning, and he also showed up 22 pounds heavier than at the Classic Physique Olympia, which is just absolutely insane, guys. But we'll go shot for shot. Now, I'm going to tell you guys my scorecard. I had Martin taking 5 of the 8 poses and Chris taking 3. So when we look at each of these shots, I'll give you my thoughts. Here in the front double bicep, now granted, these are from prejudging. I think Martin looked better at finals and could have even taken a couple more shots, potentially 6 or 7 of them. Now, In the front double bicep here, I see pretty comparable size, but what I'm seeing here is Chris has a little bit more etched in details. The lines are crisper, the condition looks better, and also it looks like Martin is fading a little bit. And I think this was probably a couple rounds into the comparisons. And what I see here is just a better V-taper from Chris, comparable size. And, you know, I think Chris wins this shot with the detail, the condition, and, you know, really just holding his own with that V-taper here. So I got Chris in the front double. The front lat, again, I would go Chris for many of the same reasons. The detail is the big difference here because he holds a lot of width that Martin also has, but Chris just looks crisper and the lines are just so clean, and he has that same size virtually in that front lat spread. Now, when we go to the side, this is an entirely different story. I think Martin absolutely obliterates Chris from the side, be it the side chest or the side tricep. The difference in their density is huge, and Martin is just much denser than Chris, especially in the upper body. That's the biggest difference through the delts, the chest, the arms, especially. I think in the lower body, it's a little bit more comparable. Martin still has a slight edge in the lower body, but the upper body density was a big difference in that side chest as well as the side tricep you're going to see here. So that would be 2 poses each heading into the back double bicep. Here, I think this is actually a pretty close pose, this in the back lat spread, but the edge here goes to Martin for me, just more thickness through the lats, more density in the back overall. And in the glutes and the hamstrings, there's just more size for Martin. Though you could argue that Chris has probably more pristine lines through the glutes, I would still give Martin the edge here in both the back double and the back lat spread. So that's 4 poses for Martin, 2 for Chris. And then when we go to the ab and thigh, I think this one's relatively close. Slight edge to Chris, however, simply due to the detail in the quads. I think you can see the lines a little bit clearer, and they look like they're taking up about the same amount of space. The midsection looks pretty comparable too, but I think the quads give Chris the slight edge there. And then when we look at the most muscular, I mean, I think this is Martin all day. He just has so much more mass and density that you're just seeing in the traps, the delts, the chest. The fullness is just crazy. So I had Martin winning 5 of the 8 poses, and Martin ended up winning the show with a unanimous perfect score from the judges. So we had Martin Fitzwater take the Prague Pro in Chris Bumstead's final show as a bodybuilder. A big congratulations to Chris on a fantastic career, and a congratulations to Martin. He's the first guy who's beat Chris Bumstead in 6 years. The last guy to beat Chris was Breon Ansley back in 2018, I believe. So it's been a minute since Chris has lost. So we had more shows this weekend. We'll get into the actual classic physique portion of this live, guys. So we'll start out with the Saturday shows. And the big one here in the United States was the Atlantic Coast Pro. So you can see here, this was our first call out from the show. Holding down the center, we had Damian Patrick and Sabur Favors. And Sabur Favors ended up taking this show. So he was second at Hurricane just a few weeks back, finished runner-up to Justin Batterina. And Sabur is a veteran. He's been to the Olympia before, just really spectacular physique. I think some of his best shots are probably his side chest and his back double bicep. Those are where he really, really shines. I think his front double bicep, his quads look great. I would say his 1 weak shot in terms of going against guys who might have better structure would be in that front double bicep, simply because I've seen guys with better V-tapers and more defined midsections, but I mean, he certainly holds his own. So a big congrats to Sabur. Now, this was a really, really tight show, like I said. So between Sabur and Damian, who ended up coming in second, there was only a 1-point difference. So the final scorecard had Sabur with 4 first place with 4 points and Damian with 5 points. So only one more judge actually had Sabur ahead of Damian taking first place. So this was as close as it gets here in bodybuilding. And both of these guys, both Sabur and Damien are now qualified for the 2025 Mr. Olympia. So congratulations to Sabur Favors on his win here at the Atlantic Coast Pro in the United States. Our second show this past weekend in the United States was the Ben Weider Natural Pro. This is the Super Bowl of classic physique for natural athletes, like I said before in my picks. And we saw Patrick Teutsch, the guy who is left of center here from Germany, win that show. This guy was extremely hyped going into this show for his condition, his level of muscularity for a natural athlete. He's definitely shined. He won a pro card in classic physique in an untested show, which is incredibly impressive. And Patrick definitely won this show with his detail and his condition. He was overall, in the eyes of the judges, the most complete from a classic physique criteria perspective. He had the best combination of size, structure, condition, and detail. I think that's what won him this show, because you'll see some of these comparisons, particularly this one right here. And you'll notice if we look at these guys, I don't think Patrick has the most size out of all of these guys. If you look at Lenny Wicks, who is center right, he's definitely the biggest guy in this lineup. You could argue that Hanjin Choi on the far left from Korea was probably the most conditioned guy here. If you just look at the detail, the level of detail, his glutes are in a lot more than Patrick's, with similar like quad detail, upper body detail. But I think Patrick just displayed the best balance of everything in the eyes of the judges. So you don't necessarily have to be the best in every single criterion, but you have to be the best when all criteria are considered, if that kind of makes sense. So you got to have the best of everything, not just the best of one thing. And that's what Patrick had here. So huge congrats to Patrick. This is the only natural Olympia qualifier. So we have a lot of IFBB Pro natural shows that are coming up on the horizon. We actually just had one in Korea a couple of weeks back, which Hanjin Choi won. And we've got some more coming up throughout the upcoming year in classic physique. I know there's going to be one in Toronto, and I think there's another one coming up as well here in the United States. So we've got a few shows on the calendar, but this is the only one that qualifies anybody for the Olympia. So Patrick, as of right now, will be the only natural pro on the classic physique Olympia stage in 2025, unless if somebody else wins a show, which is pretty unlikely. So congrats to Patrick. We also had the Prague Pro on Sunday, which was a battle. We had the usual suspects here. I kind of expected it to be between two guys, these two guys in the center right here, which were Emanuele Rigotti out of Italy and Richard Nagy of Hungary. So I predicted Emanuele Rigotti would win this show incorrectly. I simply thought that if it was close, they were going to go with a guy who had not won a show yet. Emanuele had placed second 3 times prior to the show, but Richard Nagy ended up winning this show. So a huge congratulations. He actually qualified for the Olympia last week at the Romania Pro. So this guy is a force. He was in the 3rd call out at the Olympia last year, just missed out on placing. So this guy is definitely top 20 in the world. He could move his way up to top 15. Just a very complete physique overall, beautiful shape, plenty of density. This is a guy to watch out for. And finally, our last show of the weekend, which actually occurred today. Today is Monday. We had a show in China today, which was pretty crazy. And that was won by Sung-Hoon Park of South Korea. Now, this guy is incredibly dense. He has a lot of pop to his muscle, just some crazy, like cartoonish muscle shape and insertions. You can see here from a snippet of his finals posing routine at this show. This was his very first pro win, and he had been in the mix. I think he had done 2 or 3 shows in Asia over the course of 2024. He's always been in that first call out, that top 3 or 4 usually, and he's come so close. And it's really exciting to see him finally push through and get that first pro win. And he's going to go to the 2025 Olympia as well. Now, in terms of classic physique shows to have on the horizon, we've only got one this upcoming weekend in Spain. You guys can stay tuned for more coverage here on Instagram and YouTube. It is CPC Bodybuilding, where you guys can find everything. And then Classic Physique News as well, which is my other page. You guys can follow me there. And before we get out of here, again, make sure you guys head over to Evogen Nutrition. Use my code CPC to support me, save yourself some money. And before we finish up, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. It helps me out, boost the algorithm, like, comment, and share this video with your friends. For all the classic physique content, I'm your guy. So make sure you guys run this shit up. I'm Brant for CPC Bodybuilding, Classic Physique News, signing out. Make sure you guys keep it classic. I'll catch you later.